A week or so ago, a topic became so flammable as to threaten to rip apart the very fabric of our families. This topic created tension around dinner tables, in carpools, and grabbed the attention of people all across the globe. So volatile was this argument that it was commented on by people holding the highest offices in the most powerful nation in the world. I speak, of course, of the great debate over Yanny versus Laurel. Well, if you have been living in a cave, or maybe just have what we like to call a life, you may not know about the Yanny Laurel clash. But some madman somewhere posted an audio clip online that some will swear sounds like a human voice saying the name Yanny, while others will go to their grave believing that they clearly heard the name Laurel being spoken. This, in a nutshell, is what it is like to watch what used to be the nightly network news, but now is much more like a gossip mill. One channel will interpret the day's events in one way, and if you flip the channel, you will hear the exact same events being described in ways that leave you blinking in disbelief at how far off the mark they are. Well, one comical, yet perhaps very telling part of this worldwide news event is that the New York Times actually created a tool allowing us to manipulate the way that the audio file is heard, so that depending on how you use the tool, one can choose to hear Yanny or Laurel. Not terribly unlike the verbal and visual manipulations taking place on the aforementioned network news channels. Take a glance at any news story involving firearms and our Second Amendment rights, and you will see this kind of manipulation in full display. One network will say, for example, that a person has a firearms collection. The other station will call that collection an arsenal of weaponry. One station will say that guns are used every day by responsibly armed citizens for sport and personal safety, while the other station insists that guns are only ever used as weapons of war and destruction. Both stations agree that something must be done about the horrible murders in our nation's schools, but that something on one network is to employ self-defense training and tactics, while the other seeks ever more oppressive laws to place over American citizens. The truth of all of this is that we humans do interpret things differently. We witness a car accident and honestly offer differing eyewitness accounts to what we saw and heard happen. We have biases and viewpoints rooted in our own personal history and experience. And these differences are real. They aren't easily wiped away by one side yelling louder at the other side. If you heard Yanny, you clearly aren't going to be swayed by your friends berating you that you should have heard Laurel. So where does that leave us? Are we to be forever divided by our deeply held beliefs? Or can we perhaps teach others how to hear and see what we hear and see? The New York Times did. They allowed us, with the tool they created, to slow down what was being said, allowing others to experience the world in the ways we do. Perhaps, while this tool, and any tool, can be used for ill, in this case to manipulate the audience, that very same tool can also be used for good, in this case, as a way to influence others. The key is to find the teachable moments in the madness. It is up to us in this generation to begin at home to instill the values of logic, truth, and critical thinking, and to educate our children on how our nation was formed, fought for, and preserved, so that those who seek to actively confuse and confound our future generations with manipulated phrases, we'll have a much harder time dividing us along the lines of divisive topics. We humans will always see things differently, but when the lessons of history have been ingrained and passed along to tomorrow's leaders, we can trust that wisdom will guide them in the serious and important debates and in the lighthearted disagreements over things like Yanny and Laurel. Dan?